Snow fell in quiet sheets outside the glass doors of the restaurant, melting as soon as it touched the warm light inside. Christmas music played softly, the kind meant to feel joyful, but somehow made everything more fragile. Grace adjusted the collar of her coat and looked down at her daughter. Lily stood beside her, small fingers curled around the strap of her red dress, eyes wide as she watched people laugh and talk without sound. Grace leaned down, signing gently, "It's just dinner. We'll stay a little, then go home." Lily nodded, trusting. She always did. Grace didn't know that this dinner, this single step into a crowded room, was about to change both of their lives. Before we go any further, tell me something simple. Where are you watching this from right now? A living room, a bus seat, a quiet bedroom somewhere far away? Share your place below. It's comforting to know how many hearts one story can reach. Grace was used to rooms like this bending around her presence. As a CEO, she carried authority without trying. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, she was just a mother holding her deaf child's hand, hoping no one would stare too long. They were led to a long table, already half full. Colleagues, investors, polite smiles. Lily stiffened when a man across the table laughed loudly. The vibration startled her. Grace squeezed her hand again. "I'm sorry," Grace whispered, more to Lily than anyone else. Then she noticed him. He sat a few seats down, a man in a worn sweater, shoulders slightly hunched, as if he'd learned not to take up too much space. A young boy sat beside him, swinging his legs, whispering something into his father's ear. The man smiled, not rushed, not forced, and replied with his hands. Grace froze. His fingers moved smoothly, confidently. Not clumsy gestures, but real sign language. Warm, fluent, alive. Lily noticed too. Her eyes lit up in a way Grace hadn't seen all evening. Lily leaned forward slightly, staring, then looked up at her mother and signed quickly. "He speaks like me." Grace swallowed. The man looked up then, catching Lily's gaze. For a split second, there was surprise, then something softer. He smiled and lifted his hand in a gentle wave, signing hello. Lily gasped. A silent sound of joy, and waved back enthusiastically. Grace felt her chest tighten. If you were sitting there and saw that moment unfold, what would you have done? Would you have smiled, looked away, or stepped closer? Tell me honestly in the comments. And if your heart felt that quiet tug too, press like. It's a small way to say kindness still matters. Dinner continued, but Grace barely tasted the food. She watched the way Lily kept glancing down the table, how her shoulders relaxed for the first time. Every few minutes, the man, Michael, she later learned, would sign something small. The bread is good. The lights are bright. Simple things. Normal things. Grace finally spoke. Your son, he's hearing? Sweetheart. Michael nodded. Yes. Ben never stops talking. He smiled, then added quietly, my wife was deaf. She taught me. Lily reminds me of her. There was no pity in his voice, just memory. Grace felt something crack open. She had spent years building a company, solving problems, fixing numbers. But nothing had prepared her for how alone Lily felt in rooms like this. How alone Grace felt too, pretending strength was enough. As the evening went on, conversations grew louder, wine glasses clinked. Someone made a joke Lily didn't understand. She looked down at her plate, retreating. Michael noticed instantly. He signed something longer this time, slower. Lily watched him carefully, then smiled. A real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. Grace blinked back tears. Have you ever had someone show up for you in a moment when you didn't even know how much you needed it? If yes, type yes below. And if you want, share their name. Gratitude has a way of traveling further than pain. Grace excused herself and stepped into the hallway, pressing a hand to her chest. She hadn't planned to cry tonight. CEOs weren't supposed to cry at Christmas dinners. But she did, because for the first time, she saw a future where Lily wasn't always translating the world alone. Inside, Michael watched Lily laugh silently at something Ben exaggerated with his hands. He felt a familiar ache, loss mixed with warmth.
You look so happy.
He hadn't expected this night to matter either. It was just a free dinner, a break from long shifts and empty evenings. Yet here they were, two broken edges finding quiet understanding. Grace returned to the table, her eyes red but her posture different, softer. She met Michael's gaze and nodded once, a silent thank you. The snow outside thickened, the night deepening. And somewhere between the clatter of plates and the hush of falling snow, something fragile and hopeful began to form, just as Grace leaned closer to Lily, unaware that this small connection was only the beginning, and that the hardest truths were still waiting to surface. The night didn't end at the restaurant. It lingered in Grace's mind long after she tucked Lily into bed, long after the city outside their penthouse went quiet. Lily lay beneath her snowflake blanket,
sweetheart.
Eyes still bright, hands moving quickly. He talked to me, Lily signed. Not through you. To me. Grace sat on the edge of the bed, heart aching in a way that felt both painful and right. I know, she whispered, even though Lily couldn't hear it. Grace signed back slowly, carefully. I saw your smile. Lily hugged her pillow, then signed something that made Grace pause. Can we see him again? Grace didn't answer right away. She brushed Lily's hair back, kissed her forehead, and turned off the light. But the question followed her into the dark hallway, into the quiet glass and steel spaces of her success. The next morning, Grace did something she rarely
so
did.
Happy tonight.
She hesitated.
This is
Her
the best.
assistant had already sent a summary of the dinner. Michael Carter, guest of a junior accountant, widower, single father, works nights at a logistics warehouse. No overlap with Grace's professional world at all, yet his name stayed with her. By afternoon, she found herself standing outside Lily's school, watching children pour out in noisy clusters. Lily walked alone, as she often did, scanning faces for her mother. When she saw Grace, she smiled, but there was a softness now, a question still there. On impulse, Grace signed, "Do you want to invite Ben over sometime?" Lily froze. Then her face broke open with joy. "Really?" Grace nodded. "Really? If you were in Grace's place, would you have taken that step? Or let the moment fade quietly? Share what you'd have done below. And if the story is already touching something real in you, tap like, sometimes that's the only way to say, I feel this too. Saturday came quickly. Michael arrived with Ben right on time, standing awkwardly in the sleek lobby, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He looked smaller here, surrounded by marble floors and silent elevators. Grace noticed. She noticed the way he straightened when Lily ran toward him, signing excitedly. She noticed how Ben followed, curious but respectful, how Michael knelt so Lily could see his hands clearly. "Thank you for inviting us," Michael said, voice low. "I should be thanking you," Grace replied honestly. Upstairs, the apartment felt different with other people in it. Ben explored the space with wide-eyed wonder. Lily showed him her drawings, her books, her favorite lamp that changed colors. Michael watched, a quiet smile never leaving his face. At one point, Grace brought out hot chocolate. Lily and Ben sat cross-legged on the floor, laughing. Ben with sound, Lily without, but somehow perfectly in sync. Michael signed something, and Lily laughed harder, nearly spilling her cup. Grace turned away, blinking fast. This was what Lily had been missing. Not protection, not perfection, connection. Later, as the kids built a crooked tower of blocks, Grace and Michael stood by the window. The city glowed below them, distant and cold.
This is the best.
I didn't realize how isolating it can be, Grace admitted. Even with resources, even with everything. Michael nodded. Love doesn't fix loneliness. People do. His words stayed with her. As weeks passed, the visits became routine. Homework afternoons, shared dinners, simple moments. Lily grew more confident, her hands faster, her laughter easier. Ben learned bits of sign language, clumsy but eager. Grace found herself waiting for weekends in a way she hadn't since Lily was born. But comfort has a way of waking old fears. One evening, Grace overheard Lily signing to Ben, "My dad left because I'm broken." Grace stopped breathing. She stepped into the room slowly. Lily saw her and froze, eyes wide. Michael stood too, guilt crossing his face. Grace knelt in front of her daughter, hands shaking as she signed. "You are not broken. Ever." Lily's eyes filled. Then why did he go? Grace had no answer that didn't hurt. She pulled Lily into her arms, holding her tightly, feeling the weight of years she couldn't undo. Across the room, Michael watched, his own memories rising, his wife in a hospital bed, the quiet after. That night, after the kids were asleep, Grace and Michael sat in silence. The space between them felt heavier now. "I don't want to hurt her," Michael said finally. "If getting close does that..." Grace shook her head. "You're not the one who hurt her. You're the first person who made her feel seen."
Me too, sweetheart.
The truth of it settled between them. Neither of them noticed how much they were leaning toward each other. Two tired adults standing on the edge of something fragile, until the realization hit Grace all at once. This wasn't just about Lily anymore, and that scared her more than any boardroom ever had, especially as an unexpected message appeared on her phone the next morning, one that threatened to tear this fragile piece apart before it had a chance to become something real. The message sat on Grace's screen like a quiet threat. "We need to talk about Lily." Daniel, her ex-husband's name, was enough to make her stomach tighten. Daniel rarely reached out unless lawyers were involved. He had chosen distance years ago, chosen silence over learning sign language, chosen absence over effort. Grace locked her phone, unwilling to let the words poison her morning, but the damage was already done. At breakfast, Lily chatted with her hands, telling Grace about a dream she'd had. Michael and Ben were coming over later to decorate the small Christmas tree Lily insisted on keeping in her room. Lily's joy was bright, fragile. Grace smiled, nodded, signed back, but part of her was already bracing for impact. By noon, Daniel was standing in her office doorway. Expensive coat, impatient eyes. He looked around at the sleek space, unimpressed. "She's getting attached," he said without greeting. To him, Grace didn't pretend not to understand. "Michael isn't a threat." Daniel scoffed.
So happy
"You don't know that.
I am.
He's not
This is
part of
the
our
best.
world, Grace."
Me too, sweetheart.
That word, "our," burned. "She's happy," Grace replied quietly. For the first time in a long time. Daniel crossed his arms. "And when he leaves, when this phase ends, she'll be hurt again. You should have thought about that before inviting some stranger into her life." Grace stood. "You don't get to talk about protecting her," when you walked away. Silence stretched between them, sharp and final. Daniel's voice dropped. "If you keep this up, I'll revisit custody. I don't want my daughter confused." My daughter. Grace felt something inside her go cold. Have you ever had someone try to reopen a wound you worked so hard to close? If yes,
look
type
so
yes
happy
and
tonight.
tell me.
I am.
Who
This
stood
is
by
the
you when it
best.
happened? Daniel
too,
left without
sweetheart.
another word, but his warning stayed. Grace spent the rest of the day moving through meetings like a ghost, her thoughts circling one fear. What if he's right? That evening, Michael noticed immediately. "You're quieter," he signed gently as Lily and Ben focused on the tree. "Did I do something?" Grace shook her head. "No, but someone else did." She told him everything. Daniel, the threat, the fear that letting Lily love anyone too much would only teach her how to lose again. Michael listened without interrupting, his face careful, guarded. When she finished, he didn't rush to reassure her. He just signed slowly, deliberately. "I lost my wife because the world wasn't built for
You
her,"
look so
he
happy
signed.
tonight.
I
Hospitals
am. This
that
is
didn't
the
listen.
best.
Doctors
Me too,
who talked
sweetheart.
around her. "I promised myself I'd never be the reason someone felt abandoned." Grace felt her eyes sting. "If you wanted to step back," he added, "I will. It'll hurt, but I'll do it." The room seemed to tilt. Across the floor, Lily looked up, sensing the shift. Her hands stilled. She watched the adults, reading faces the way she always had to. Grace's chest tightened. She saw suddenly what this choice really was. Not between safety and risk, but between fear and honesty. She knelt in front of Lily, signing carefully. Sometimes grown-ups get scared when things feel good, but that doesn't mean the good thing is wrong. Lily frowned, then signed something that made Grace
You look so
inhale
happy
sharply.
tonight.
I
"I'm
am.
scared when
This is the
people
best.
leave." Grace
too,
pulled her
sweetheart.
into her arms. "I know. So am I." That night, after Michael and Ben left, Grace stood alone in the quiet apartment. She stared at the tree Lily had decorated. Uneven, imperfect, beautiful. For years, Grace had controlled everything she could. This she couldn't. And maybe she wasn't supposed to. The next day, Grace made a decision that surprised even herself. She invited Daniel to Lily's school. They stood at the back of the classroom, watching as a sign language interpreter worked alongside the teacher. Lily sat taller than she ever had, raising her hand, signing confidently. When she answered a question correctly, the interpreter smiled and voiced it aloud. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. That man you're worried about,
Me too,
Grace said
sweetheart.
quietly. He's the reason Lily believes her voice matters. Daniel said nothing. After class, Lily ran to Grace, then stopped short when she saw her father. Her hands hovered, uncertain. Daniel hesitated, then lifted his hand clumsily, signing a slow, awkward hello. Lily's eyes widened. She smiled. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a beginning. Grace watched the exchange, heart pounding. She didn't know how this would end. She only knew that pulling love away to avoid pain had already failed once. And as she looked at Lily, standing between two worlds, hands raised, brave and small, Grace realized the real fight wasn't with Daniel at all. It was with the part of herself that believed love should be rationed. And that belief was about to be tested in a way none of them could have imagined. When a sudden phone call later that night shattered the fragile calm and forced Michael to face a choice he'd been avoiding for far too long. The phone rang just after midnight. Michael stared at the screen from the edge of his bed, the glow lighting up the small, quiet apartment he shared with Ben. A known number. His chest tightened before he even answered. "Mr. Carter?" A woman's voice said. Calm. Professional. "This is St. Mary's Hospital. We're calling about your sister, Emma." Michael's breath caught. Emma had been deaf too. Younger than him. Fiercely independent. She hated hospitals almost as much as she hated asking for help. "She collapsed at work," the woman continued. "We believe it was exhaustion related, but she's asking for you. She won't calm down." Michael was already pulling on his jacket. At Grace's apartment, Lily had just fallen asleep when Grace's phone buzzed. A message from Michael, short and unsteady. "I'm sorry to ask this late. Could you watch Ben? I need to go to the hospital." Grace didn't hesitate. "Of course. We're here." An hour later, Ben slept curled on Lily's beanbag chair, the two children breathing softly in the same room. Grace sat on the couch, staring at the dark window, thoughts heavy. Hospitals had a way of pulling old fears to the surface. She didn't know that across town, Michael was standing under harsh fluorescent lights, watching doctors speak words his sister couldn't hear, watching her eyes fill with panic as she tried to read their lips and failed. He stepped in front of them, hands moving fast, grounding. "You're okay. I'm here. Slow down." Emma clutched his wrist like she might fall if she let go. Later, when the doctors finally left, Emma signed weakly. "I didn't want to scare you." Michael swallowed. "You didn't. You just reminded me I can't keep pretending I'm fine." Emma studied him. "You're tired." He nodded. "And you're afraid to want things again." She signed gently. The words hit too close to the bone. By morning, Grace brought coffee to the hospital. She hadn't slept. Neither had Michael. They sat side by side in plastic chairs, shoulders barely touching, the kind of closeness that felt earned. "She'll be okay," Michael said. "But I need to help her more. She's been working double shifts because she didn't want to burden me." Grace looked at him. "People who love you don't see you as a burden." He gave a tired smile. "You sound like someone who's learning that the hard way." They shared a quiet laugh. Over the next few weeks, life grew heavier and strangely fuller. Grace adjusted her schedule to be home earlier. Michael cut back night shifts. Emma stayed with him temporarily, bringing a sharp wit and a quiet strength that Lily admired instantly. The apartment filled with hands in motion, stories signed over dinner, laughter that didn't always need sound. But outside that small circle, the world didn't soften. A parent at Lily's school complained about special treatment. A board member hinted Grace's focus was drifting. Daniel grew distant again, watching from the sidelines with cautious eyes. One afternoon, Lily came home quiet. Grace noticed immediately. She knelt, signing what happened. Lily hesitated, then signed slowly. "A boy said I'm lucky because I don't have to hear mean things." Grace felt anger rise, but Lily wasn't finished. I told him I hear them anyway. Just differently. Grace pulled her into a hug, pride and pain tangling together. That night, as Lily slept, Grace sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at her laptop. A charity proposal blinked on the screen, funding for inclusive communication programs. She reviewed dozens like it before, approved some, rejected many. This one felt different. She thought of Michael in the hospital hallway, of Emma's fear, of Lily's small, brave hands. And she signed the approval. Now it's your turn to pause for a second. What's one small good thing you've done recently? Something quiet, maybe no one noticed. Write it below. Let others see that kindness doesn't have to be loud to matter. Your story might be exactly what someone needs tonight. The impact was immediate. Schools reached out. Clinics requested support. Grace's name became associated not just with success, but with change. But change invites scrutiny. An anonymous complaint reached the board. Conflict of interest. They said, personal involvement clouding judgment. Grace stood before them a week later, steady but exposed. If empathy disqualifies leadership, she said calmly, then perhaps the problem isn't me. The room went silent. Outside, Michael waited with Lily and Ben, hands linked. Lily watched the doors anxiously. When Grace finally emerged, her face unreadable, Lily rushed forward. Did you win? She signed. Grace knelt, brushing Lily's hair back. I told the truth. Sometimes that's the same thing. They walked home together, unaware that Daniel was watching from across the street. Watching Lily laugh between Michael and Grace, watching a family that didn't fit his old definition. And for the first time, he wondered if the thing he feared most wasn't confusion, but being left behind. That question would push him toward a choice he never thought he'd make, just as another test loomed on the horizon, one that would demand forgiveness, or fracture everything they had built right at the edge of the season meant for miracles. The reveal came quietly, the way truth often does, without drama, without warning. It happened on a Tuesday evening, the air sharp with cold, Christmas lights blinking outside the windows. Grace was folding laundry when Lily walked in holding a small envelope, her hands trembling just slightly. Dad gave this to me, Lily signed. He said it's important. Grace's fingers stilled. Inside the envelope was a folded medical report, old, dated years back, words circled in red. Congenital hearing loss detected early. Immediate intervention recommended. Grace sat down slowly. Daniel had known. He had known before Lily was born, before the nursery was painted, before promises were made. He had known there was a chance their child would be deaf. And he had chosen silence. Chosen to believe that if he didn't speak it aloud, it wouldn't be real. Grace's chest felt hollow. That night, Daniel showed up unannounced. I didn't think it would matter, he said, standing in the doorway, eyes red. I thought maybe it would go away. Michael stood behind Grace, quiet, steady. Lily watched them both, reading faces. Grace's voice didn't shake. You didn't leave because Lily was deaf, she said. You left because you were afraid. Daniel nodded, tears spilling now. I didn't know how to be what she needed. The truth hung heavy in the room. If that moment landed hard in your chest, leave a red heart. Sometimes one small symbol says what our hearts can't find words for. Daniel knelt in front of Lily, hands awkward, unsure. He signed slowly, imperfectly. I'm sorry I was gone. Lily studied him for a long moment. Then she signed back, I'm still here. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rejection either. After Daniel left, the apartment felt different, raw, exposed. Grace sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Michael handed her a glass of water. She didn't realize she needed. You okay? He asked softly. Grace shook her head. But I will be. She looked at him then, really looked, at the lines of exhaustion, at the kindness that never asked for permission, at the way he stayed. Thank you, she said, for not leaving. Michael didn't answer right away. He signed instead, slower than usual. I almost did. Before you. Before Lily. Grace's breath caught. I was tired of losing, he continued aloud. So I decided not to want. It felt safer. She understood that fear too well. Days passed. Christmas crept closer. Snow piled higher. Lily practiced a short sign song for the school holiday assembly. Ben learned the rhythm just by watching her hands. Emma helped, correcting gently, laughing often. But beneath the warmth, something waited. The board called Grace back in. This time, their tone was colder. Your personal involvement has created complications, one member said. Step back on the foundation or step down. Grace listened, calm on the outside, heart pounding inside. That night, she told Michael everything. I could lose my position, she said quietly. Everything I built. Michael looked at her, eyes steady. And if you step back? Nothing changes for Lily, Grace replied. For the others, maybe not either. Just my title. Silence filled the room. Michael finally asked, Do you regret it? Grace thought of Lily's confidence, of Emma in the hospital, of children learning to be heard. No, she said, not for a second. Michael nodded, something settling in him. Then whatever happens, you didn't lose. Christmas Eve arrived soft and bright. They gathered in the living room, mismatched stockings hanging, the tree glowing unevenly. Daniel stood near the door, uncertain. Grace nodded him in. Lily walked him, took his hand, and placed it on her chest so he could feel her heartbeat. She signed, This is me. Daniel cried openly then. Later, as snow fell outside, Michael stood beside Grace on the balcony. Lights flickered across the city. I got offered a job, he said. Day hours. Training role. It means staying. Grace turned to him. Is that what you want? He smiled, soft and real. Yes. Inside, Lily laughed, hands moving fast as Ben tried to keep up. Emma corrected him, playful. Grace watched him through the glass. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't bracing for loss. She was standing in it, love, imperfect and brave. But forgiveness still lingered, unspoken and heavy, waiting to be claimed. And soon, Grace would have to face the hardest question of all. Not about leadership or fear, but about whether letting go of anger could finally make room for the future they were all quietly hoping for. The question didn't come from the boardroom or the past. It came from Lily. They were walking home from the park, snow crunching under their boots, breath visible in the cold air. Lily had been quiet, her hands tucked into her coat pockets, eyes thoughtful. Then she stopped. Grace turned back, concerned. Are you tired? Lily shook her head and slowly pulled her hands free, signing with careful intent. Can Dad come to my school show? Grace felt the world narrow. The holiday assembly was tomorrow. Lily signed song. Her moment. Grace had assumed, without realizing it, that Daniel wouldn't be there. Some lines felt safer untested. Michael and Ben waited a few steps ahead. Michael noticed Grace freeze. He turned back, his expression gentle but alert. Grace knelt so Lily could see her clearly. Do you want him there? Lily nodded. I want him to see me. Not the past. Not the mistake. Me. Grace swallowed. That night, after Lily was asleep, Grace sat alone at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the heater. Forgiveness sat heavy in her chest, tangled with memories she'd kept locked away. Late nights alone with a newborn, unanswered calls, learning sign language by herself while Daniel slowly disappeared. Michael joined her silently, setting 2 mugs of tea down. You don't have to, he said gently. Whatever you choose. Grace stared into steam. I know. She wasn't angry anymore. That was the problem. Anger had been easier, cleaner. Forgiveness meant risk. Be honest. Could you forgive after being abandoned when you needed someone most? Type forgive if you think you could, or never, if that wound would be too deep to reopen. Grace picked up her phone. She stared at Daniel's name for a long moment, then pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Grace. Lily wants you at the assembly, Grace said. Her voice was steady, even if her heart wasn't. If you come, it's for her, not for us. Daniel exhaled sharply. I'll be there. The next day, the school auditorium buzzed with parents and children. Folding chairs scraped the floor. Holiday decorations hung slightly crooked. Grace sat with Michael, Ben, and Emma. Lily waited backstage, peeking out nervously. Then Daniel walked in. He hesitated when he saw Grace. She met his eyes and nodded once. He sat a few rows behind them, hands folded tightly in his lap. When Lily stepped onto the stage, the room softened. She stood under bright lights, small but steady. The music began, not loud, but rhythmic enough for her to follow. And Lily signed. Every movement was deliberate, every expression clear. Her face glowed with confidence she'd grown into slowly, painfully, beautifully. Grace felt tears spill freely. Michael watched Lily with quiet pride. Emma held Ben's hand. Daniel leaned forward, eyes never leaving his daughter. When the song ended, the room erupted in applause. Lily didn't hear it, but she felt the vibration through the floor. She smiled wide. Her eyes searched the audience. Grace stood, signing "I'm here." Michael stood beside her, signing the same. Ben jumped excitedly. Then Lily saw Daniel. He stood too, and he signed, slow, imperfect, but unmistakable. "I see you." Lily's smile faltered, then returned brighter. Afterward, backstage was chaos. Parents hugged children. Teachers praised performances. Lily ran straight into Grace's arms, laughing silently. Daniel waited a few steps away, unsure. Grace took a breath. She turned to him. "Thank you," she said simply. Daniel nodded. "Thank you for letting me try." They didn't hug. They didn't need to. That evening, the board's decision came through. Grace read the email quietly, then closed her laptop. Michael looked at her. "What did they say?" She smiled, small but real. "I'm stepping back from the title. Keeping the work." Michael studied her face. "Are you okay?" Grace thought of Lily on stage. Of forgiveness given, not because it was deserved, but because it was needed. "Yes," she said. "I am." Snow began to fall again outside the window, soft and steady. Lily curled up on the couch between Grace and Michael, hands resting on both of them, as if anchoring herself to the moment. Grace looked down at her daughter. Whole, brave, seen. Forgiveness hadn't erased the past, but it had loosened its grip. And as the night settled in, warm and quiet, Grace sensed they were standing on the edge of something new. Not perfect, not promised, but real. A future built not on fear or titles, but on the courage to stay. And in that stillness, as Lily drifted to sleep, Grace realized the climax wasn't a single moment at all, but the quiet understanding that love, once chosen freely, could finally begin to heal what silence had broken. The days after the assembly felt lighter, as if the air itself had shifted. Grace noticed it in small ways. Lily woke up humming silently. Her hands, moving before her feet, even touched the floor. She packed her own bag for school now, triple-checking her notebook with proud seriousness. Confidence had settled into her, not loud, not defiant, but steady. Michael noticed it too. One evening, as he helped Lily with a puzzle at the kitchen table, she signed suddenly, "I like when everyone is together." Michael paused. "Everyone who?" Lily looked up at him. Thoughtful. "Mom, you, Ben, Aunt Emma, and Dad, sometimes." The word sometimes mattered. Michael nodded, accepting the truth of it without trying to shape it. "That sounds nice," he said softly. Grace watched him across the room, something warm spreading through her chest. This imperfect blend wasn't something she could have planned. It had grown on its own, fragile and honest. But peace has a way of testing itself. A week later, Daniel asked to meet Grace alone. They sat in a quiet cafe near Lily's school. Outside, winter traffic hummed. Daniel looked different, less guarded, more tired. "I'm not asking to fix the past," he said quickly. "I know I can't." He hesitated. "But I want to learn. For Lily, real sign language, not just pieces." Grace studied him carefully. This was the man who had left when things got hard. The man she had rebuilt her life without. And yet, this was also Lily's father, trying the only way he knew how now. "There's a community center," Grace said finally. "They offer classes. You will have to be patient. With yourself." Daniel nodded. "I can do patient." Grace didn't smile, but something inside her unclenched. "That night," she told Michael. He listened quietly, then said, Lily deserves everyone who's willing to show up. Grace exhaled. You're better at this than I am. Michael shook his head. No, I just know what it costs when people don't. The truth of that lingered. As Christmas drew closer, the apartment filled with preparation. Cookies baked and burned. Wrapping paper piled up. Ben insisted on placing the star crookedly on the tree. Emma corrected him, laughing. Lily signed instructions like a director on a movie set. Grace stood in the doorway one evening, watching them all. For years, she had believed safety meant control. But standing there, she realized safety might actually mean trust, the courage to let people love imperfectly and stay anyway. On Christmas morning, snow blanketed the city in white silence. Lily woke everyone before sunrise, tugging at sleeves, eyes bright. Gifts were simple but thoughtful. A signed storybook for Lily, a warm scarf for Michael, a framed drawing from Ben for Grace, stick figures holding hands, labeled carefully. Family. Grace felt her throat tighten. Later, Daniel arrived. He stood awkwardly at first, then relaxed as Lily pulled him toward the tree, excitedly showing him her gifts. His signing was still slow but earnest. Lily waited patiently, correcting him with a gentle smile. Michael watched from a distance, unsure where he fit in moments like this. Grace noticed. She crossed the room and stood beside him. You don't disappear just because others show up, she said quietly. Michael met her eyes. You sure? She nodded. I'm sure. If you believe love still finds a way to win, even when the path is messy, comment amen below. Let this space fill with hope. Someone scrolling right now might need to see it. In the afternoon, they walked outside together, boots crunching through snow. Lily ran ahead, arms outstretched, feeling the cold air, the quiet joy of it. Ben chased after her. Emma filmed, laughing. Grace hung back with Michael. I used to think strength was doing everything alone, Grace said. Now I think it's knowing when not to. Michael smiled. That realization changes everything. They stopped at the park. Lily turned back, signing excitedly, Watch me. She climbed onto a small snow-covered hill, raised her arms dramatically, and signed, I'm not scared anymore. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. Because Lily wasn't just talking about the hill. She was talking about the world. As the sun dipped low, casting gold across the snow, Grace understood something with quiet certainty. The worst parts of their story no longer defined them. They had been seen, they had been heard, and they had stayed. But one final truth still waited to be spoken. One last moment that would turn this story from healing into meaning, from love into legacy. And as evening fell and lights flickered on across the city, Grace knew the closing chapter wouldn't be about what they survived, but about what they chose to carry forward, together. The city slowed between Christmas and New Year's, as if even time needed to breathe. Grace stood alone in her office one last time. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Boxes were stacked neatly by the door. The title was gone. The work remained. Through the glass wall, the skyline glowed soft and distant. She didn't feel loss. She felt space. At home, Lily sat at the dining table with colored markers spread everywhere. She was drawing something carefully, tongue tucked between her teeth in concentration. Michael helped Ben assemble a puzzle on the floor, while Emma read nearby. Grace watched them for a moment before Lily noticed her. Mom, Lily signed, holding up the drawing. It was simple, a table. People sitting around it. Hands raised, lines connecting them. Grace knelt. What is it? Lily signed with certainty. This is how we talk to each other now. Grace's chest tightened. That evening, Daniel stopped by briefly. He brought a small notebook, pages filled with clumsy practice, arrows and corrections scribbled everywhere. I'm bad at this, he admitted quietly. Lily took the notebook, flipped through it, then looked up at him and smiled. You're trying. Daniel laughed, wiping his eyes. Yeah, I am. After he left, the apartment grew quiet again. Outside, snow drifted lazily past the windows. Michael stood beside Grace, hands in his pockets. You okay? He asked. Grace nodded. I was thinking about how close I came to choosing fear. Michael looked at her. And what stopped you? Grace glanced toward Lily. now curled up on the couch with Ben, hands moving as she told him a story only they could fully share. She showed me what courage looks like. Grace said. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Grace and Michael sat together on the balcony, wrapped in blankets, city lights stretching endlessly below. I don't know what this looks like, Grace said softly. Us. Michael considered it. I don't either. He smiled gently. But I know what it feels like. Grace leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time, she didn't need certainty to feel safe. Days passed, then weeks. Grace spent her mornings at schools and clinics, not as a CEO, but as a listener. She watched teachers learn to sign. Doctors pause long enough to face their patients. Parents cry, not from fear, but relief. Everywhere she went, she carried Lily's drawing folded in her bag. One afternoon, Lily asked a question that felt like a whisper and a declaration all at once. Do you think other kids feel alone like I did? Grace nodded. Some do. Lily thought for a moment, then signed, I want to help them. Grace smiled through tears. You already are. Before we reach the end, pause with me for a moment. If this story moved you, if Lily's courage, Grace's choice, or Michael's quiet kindness touched something inside, don't scroll past silently. Tap like, not for a video, but for the child who felt unseen and kept going anyway. One small click can say, I felt you. You mattered. On New Year's Eve, they gathered on the roof of the building, bundled against the cold. Fireworks bloomed in the distance, silent bursts of color against the night sky. Lily watched intently, feeling the vibrations through the concrete. She laughed, hands flying as she signed. It's like the sky is talking. Grace laughed with her. Michael watched the two of them, heart full in a way he once thought impossible. When midnight came, there was no loud countdown, just a quiet moment where Grace held Lily's hands, signing slowly, deliberately. This year, you taught me how to listen. Lily smiled and signed back, you always did, just with your heart. Grace pulled her into a hug, and in that embrace was a moral Grace would carry forever, not as a lesson, but a truth lived daily. That strength isn't found in titles or silence. That love isn't proven by perfection, but by presence. And that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stay, learn, forgive, and open their hands instead of closing them. Outside, the fireworks faded. Inside, something steady remained. A family not built by circumstance, but by choice. And that choice, made again and again, quietly and bravely, would echo far longer than any sound ever could.